Hey everybody, welcome back to the I Play 2 podcast. I'm your host, Rob Adler. This week, former Illinois college basketball star Tauja Catchings joins the show. When she concluded her college career in 2000, she was the only player in school history to record 1,400 points, 700 rebounds, 300 assists, and 200 steals. Also, as a senior, Tauja led the Illini in rebounding and was named first team All Big Ten. In high school, she was named 1996 Miss Basketball in Illinois and won 2 state titles. Her sister, Tamika Catchings, was one of the most decorated players in history. She won 4 Olympic gold medals, was WNBA MVP in 2011, and was inducted into the Basketball Hall of Fame in 2020. Also, her son, Hannon Catchings, is a forward playing at Georgia, and her father, Harvey Catchings, played 11 seasons in the NBA, including in the 1977 NBA Finals. Tauja, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Excited to be with you.
Thank you for being here. I hear you're doing some travel shortly. Where are you headed?
We're headed to Florida, so just looking forward to getting out of gloomy Indiana for a couple of days and enjoying some sunshine.
How did you end up in Indiana, considering you grew up in Illinois?
So because of the fact that our dad played, we pretty much grew up a little bit of everywhere. A lot of moving around, a lot of different school districts between starting school and heading to college. So when I finished up at Illinois, I wasn't really sure where I wanted to go. And my sister got drafted here to play for the Fever that following year. And I just followed her to Indiana. We started doing some different camps and clinics and things like that in the community. I ended up launching a nonprofit organization, and this has just become home. So this is the longest that I've lived in one place. Indiana has been a great place to raise a family. And I've been here, 20 plus years, which is wild to say.
Speaking of the nonprofit, you're the co-founder and executive director of Catch the Stars Foundation. Would you mind going into a little bit more detail about what the foundation does?
When my sister got drafted here in 2001, she was actually injured. She had torn her ACL during her senior season at Tennessee. So they drafted a player that they knew wasn't going to be able to make an impact on the court. So when she came here, I came here to kind of keep her spirits up and help her through the rehab process. And in the meantime, she told the community relations director, just throw me into any community appearances and things like that. I can't do anything on the court, but I want to do what I can in the community. So she started making a lot of connections and relationships, ended up doing an event over at a community center. And the park manager there was like, wow, you're great with kids. Would you want to do a basketball camp? So December of 2001, we actually did a Catch the Fever youth holiday basketball camp, and just looking for a way to spread positivity and use basketball as a hook to get kids off the couch and in a gym and doing something more positive during that winter break when a lot of them can get into trouble or just sit around and not do a lot. So we did that basketball camp. It was a huge hit. It was a 5-day camp from 8 to 5. So looking back, I'm like, whew, God bless us back in our early 20s. But that camp actually became the catalyst for Catch the Stars. We're all about youth empowerment. All of our programs focus on fitness, literacy, and character development mentorship. So the next year, parents were like, well, what else do you guys do? And we added a fitness clinic, knowing that not all kids are necessarily interested in basketball, but all kids need to be interested in health and fitness and leading more active and healthy lifestyles. So that fitness clinic that we did the second year was twofold. We were able to teach kids healthy habits, but then we were also able to give these kids that were typically on the receiving end an opportunity to give back. So the clinic was free as long as kids brought cans that we in turn donated to a local food bank. So that became our second program. And then the same thing, the next year, parents were like, well, what else do you guys do? So at that point, we were doing a basketball camp, fitness clinics, and we added a mentoring program. My sister and I sat down and what life lessons and life skills would we want to teach our younger selves? And we put together a curriculum and a program centered around that we called STARS, Sisters Teaching and Reaching Sisters. So it was a 12-week mentoring program, just really pour into the next generation and just teach them healthy habits. At this point, we're doing 3 programs, and we weren't even a foundation. We were just 2 people that saw needs that we wanted to fill. So the next year, we actually did incorporate and became Catch the Stars Foundation in 2004. So we're celebrating 20 plus years of pouring into the community.
How awesome is that, paying it forward? I love to hear that.
Absolutely. That's what it's all about. And we're blessed. I think when you're blessed, you have a responsibility to bless others. And we actually just wrapped up 25 years of hosting the basketball camp. And we're like, okay, 25 years is a good number to end on. We're tired. We're pivoting the foundation this year. But still, in terms of programming, we do huge back to school celebration. Heading back to school was always one of our favorite things as kids, and the memories of shopping for school supplies, picking out that backpack. And once you get older and you realize not everybody is as fortunate and is in a situation where they can have that same experience. So one of our main focuses has always been too, just equipping kids with the tools that they need to be successful at school. So we do a back to school event that we've done for 20 plus years, and we give out over 1,000 backpacks that are filled with all the school supplies that they need to start the school year ready to learn. So we do a lot of different programming. We've given over $1 million in scholarships to local high school seniors to assist them with their higher educational goals. And then, of course, literacy is huge for us. So we've got a book club and a reading corner where every month kids and families can come and pick out and take free books. Then we do free pop-up events. Like everything pretty much that we do is just to give.
So as a kid, you mentioned backpack. What was your favorite backpack?
If it had glitter or sparkles, I was always, I guess, a little bit more extra in my backpack choices. And that's one of the things even that's fun now is when we do our event, we truly make it a shopping experience for these kids. We've actually turned down sponsors just because it's not about giving these kids a backpack that has somebody's logo or name on the back of it. We want them to have something that represents them, that they could be proud of, and that they're excited to carry to school every day. And I think that that kind of sets the tone. So we shop for backpacks pretty much year round and accept donations and have an Amazon link and all the things just so that it truly is a huge assortment and variety of backpacks for them to choose from.
Speaking of kids, how close growing up were you and your sister? And also at the same point, how competitive were the two of you?
We were super competitive. We actually have an older brother. He doesn't get mentioned as often because Meek and I are obviously closer in age, but we're all about 21 months apart. And with all the moving around that we did, I think that made us that much closer as siblings. No matter where we moved, we had each other. And the 3 of us were very competitive. Meek and I probably more so, just being that we were the 2 girls, but best of friends. We would argue and maybe get into a little bit. And then just like that, it was like, oh, okay, well, let's watch a movie or let's do this or let's do that. And growing up, she was probably more the typical tomboy, just want to be outside with the boys doing all the sports and things. And I was more the one like, well, I want to play with dolls and I want to have tea parties and I want to put on cute clothes. And there was a lot of bartering of, okay, all right, I'll play with your dolls for a little bit if you come outside and shoot hoops with me. So I think we were a good balance.
We'll give your brother a little bit of love here too, because I know his son played at Harvard and Duke as well.
Yes, all of his boys have been very successful. I'm super proud of all my nephews. His oldest actually played football at Presbyterian College and then ended up playing basketball at Presbyterian, earned a full ride scholarship, is doing very well, beautiful family. And then Kale was able to graduate from Harvard and then do his grad year and get, I believe, a second degree from Duke. And then his other son, Jace, played at UC Irvine one season. And then he went to a couple of other schools, but he's done very, very well. Basketball is definitely in the blood.
Out of all your family, who is the best all-around basketball player that isn't your sister, Tamika?
That's a hard one. I would almost have to probably say myself after Tamika, given if you're talking all around. I think that my son Cannon has the potential to be that. And I try and stay in my mama lane with him and just rah, cheer, you're doing great. Let the coaches coach and not be the parent that jumps into what they could be doing better, unless he specifically asks, which he rarely does. But I do think that he's definitely got the potential to have a great career once it all kind of comes together. I feel like he's a bit of a late bloomer and he's still got a lot of blooming left to do. His ceiling is incredibly high.
When it comes down to clutch time in a game, was it harder for you to possibly take the last shot or to watch your son take the last shot?
Honestly, nobody prepared me for how difficult it would be to be a sports parent. In my mind, I thought, oh, this will be so much easier sitting in the stands. Oh no, it's horrible. It's awful. It's so hard, so much harder than being an athlete myself. When you're an athlete, you're locked in, you're in control of the outcome, you're able to do what you do. It is really not easy watching. So I would rather take the shot than watch him take the shot.
So, being a sports parent, because I know you have two kids, how many gyms in a year do you end up sitting in watching games?
That's a great question. A lot, a lot. This year was kind of nice because Cannon, I didn't have to be as present for him as I was previously. I mean, there's a lot of travel involved, but my younger son, Colton, he played JV and varsity, which meant sitting through not one game, but two games a lot of times. And that was a lot. And then I was excited that the seasons both finally ended. And then it's like, oh, you had one weekend off, and then it's right into AAU basketball. So we will start traveling again next week. And it literally is pretty much every weekend. It feels like that you're constantly going, but it's still the dropping off to picking up. He's only 15, so he's not quite driving yet. So between the drop offs and sitting on bleachers, we spend a lot of time in gyms.
I know the result wasn't what you or your son at Georgia wanted, but what was it like just to be able to see your son play in an NCAA tournament?
It's nerve-wracking. It's exciting and super proud of him. I think that there's a lesson in everything. I didn't realize too he wasn't feeling well, which it showed, but definitely proud. Not a lot of people get to experience that. So I do think that it was neat and it's something to build upon and grow upon. And I mean, last year as a freshman, his team made it to the Sweet 16. So that was kind of cool. This year, obviously, an early exit wasn't great, but it's still neat to be able to say, hey, 2 years in a row, I was in the NCAA tournament.
As it was in Buffalo, did you make the anchor bar for some wings?
We did not. It was such a quick turnaround. And that's the thing, too. Like when you're traveling, typically for sports stuff, we got up super early. I think I was up at 3 a.m. to catch a 5-something flight. And we had connections because it was Buffalo. So then by the time you got there, and then it was freezing cold. And we did make it to Niagara Falls. That was kind of the one thing that I'm like, look, we're too close to not go do that. So his brother and I went and did that, got something to eat, checked into the hotel, passed out for a few hours, and then pretty much went to the game. And then as the game was not going the way we thought it was going to go, I'm like, I've learned to book one-way tickets when traveling for sporting events because I've had too many. They're going to make it. We're going to be here all weekend long. And then you're stuck in a city you really don't want to be in for a whole weekend. So we did one way and we were able to do a one-way ticket leaving 6 a.m. the next morning.
So, how was Niagara Falls? What did you think of it?
Honestly, I mean, it's one of those things. Check it off the box. It was freezing cold. I'll have to send you the video of my son. The wind is just tearing him up and it's frozen. It was cold. And I think Niagara Falls in like June or July would probably be a lot better experiencing it. We just wanted to get back in the car, but it was neat to see.
If you ever get a chance to go across the border and see it from the Canadian side, I think it's much nicer.
That's what I heard. And I did bring my passport and his birth certificate and all the things, but I think we were just so cold and so tired that we were like, you know what? We'll come back and do it maybe another time.
And if you're big into those big waterfalls, you got to go see one on the Big Island out in Hawaii.
Okay. Hawaii sounds amazing. I'm always up for something like that. I've never been, but it's definitely on my bucket list.
I believe everybody should see Pearl Harbor at least once.
I'll have to check that out. And I do think that's one thing, even with all the traveling we do for sports, is always trying to kind of like, okay, well, what's around here that has some sort of relevance or it's just something that we should definitely check out. So we gotten to see quite a few things. And I mean, I even think about my son, Cannon, getting to travel all over the world and take his first steps in another country and things like that. Just other gifts that have been blessings of basketball.
I know you're from a basketball family, but how did your initial interest in basketball begin? And did you play any other sports growing up?
One thing that drives me crazy about this generation is that a lot of them, it's like, oh no, you're good at this one thing. You need to focus on this one thing. Where with us growing up, we literally did every sport. I think our first sport was probably soccer or softball. And we did tennis, we did bowling, we did gymnastics, we did jazz and tap. And we were horrible. We weren't gifted dancers or gymnasts or any of those things. But I think our mom was just really good about exposing us to different things. And even throughout high school, being able to play volleyball. And Tamika and I both could have gone to college and played volleyball, but we ended up deciding on basketball as both of our paths. But I mean, so many great memories from playing different sports and being on different teams and tons of fun and tons of things that I feel like kids that do specialize in one thing kind of miss out on.
From any of those other things, be it from dancing or let's say soccer, how did that translate at all for you on the basketball court?
I think it's cross training. Like my son, Cannon, played with a kid that was a phenomenal soccer player, but he was also a really good point guard. But you could see like footwork, just how quick and the speed and the endurance and court vision. And I mean, there's just a lot of different things that translate. Plus, I think when you play multiple sports, there's less of the overuse injuries of doing the same repetitive motion over and over and over and over again. You give your body a break and you're able to kind of train different muscles and do things a little bit differently. So I definitely think volleyball for sure, soccer for sure, even like tennis, hand-eye coordination, but footwork is probably one of the biggest ones.
I was reading a story from back when you were playing at Illinois that you had a huge love for volleyball. How serious was it that you might have actually played volleyball instead of basketball in college?
Definitely, it's something that I considered and thought about. And then even at Illinois, they're like, well, would you want to do both? And I'm like, look, one body, one scholarship, one sport. That would have been a lot. But I did enjoy playing volleyball. I really, really did. And of course, the volleyball uniforms were cuter than the basketball uniforms. So that was another piece of it. But I think God had a plan, and my plan and path was basketball. And basketball has definitely been a huge part of my life and a huge blessing.
So recruiting now is obviously very different than recruiting was in the 90s, but what was the recruiting process like for you and how did you decide to go to school at the University of Illinois?
The recruiting process was different. That was back in the day when you'd get letters. That was the thing. Like, ooh, I got letters. Like my mom had these big Rubbermaid bins. Mika had her own bin. I had my bin. My brother had his bin. And then I think eventually she took all the letters and put them in like, remember when it was cool to have those almost kind of like a photo album, but each page was all of his letters. I don't think she got to that point with us. She was more organized with the first child, but it was different back then. For Tamika, she knew right away from the time she was in seventh grade, I'm going to Tennessee. I'm going to play for Coach Summit. That's it. I want to wear orange. I want to be part of that. That was always her thing. But I think I was just kind of a little bit of a different situation with basketball because for me, I was kind of, well, I didn't ever really feel like I was good enough to play collegiately early on. And then it was like, oh, no, you're good. You could do this thing. So we had experienced some loss in our family. And then, of course, parents going through a divorce. And part of the reason I stayed in Illinois was because my dad was in Illinois. But then also, I loved Coach Grentz. And Coach Grentz was basically trying to restart and re energize the Illinois women's basketball program. So I kind of like the idea instead of going to a Tennessee or going to a place that's already got this long track record of success, like how cool would it be to go somewhere that doesn't have that and be able to help change the trajectory of the program? So that was what intrigued me about going to Illinois.
Honestly, I should have looked this up and I didn't. But did you ever play against your sister in college?
I did. It was my sophomore year, her freshman year, and we actually played at Tennessee. So that was interesting. And of course, that was the year that they were undefeated.
So take me through that game, the emotions, like you're so close, but yet you're playing against your sister and you're playing against the legendary coach and Pat Summit on the road. What was that all like?
It was exciting. For me, of course, just the coolest part about it was just getting to see my sister, even if it was just on the court across from me. It was a huge honor, even for a program like Illinois, to get to go up against a Tennessee during a regular season game. And I still remember there were a couple people in the stands with signs that weren't very nice to me. And I remember one that was like, "We got the better catchings" or something. And I was just like, okay, really? It's not very nice, but I get it. But it was a good experience. It was fun. And I don't think I got matched up directly against her very often in the game, but feels like a lifetime ago.
Is that your most memorable experience from a college game, or is there something else that sticks out that was even more poignant for you?
When I think about how I played in my college experience, it was more the relationships and the friendships and the fun stuff off the court and even the silly stuff. And our team, like we had a good time in college. We had a really good time. And we would hang out and spend a lot of time together. And there were times we'd stay up all night and then be at the track 6 a.m. trying to do conditioning workouts and stuff. And those were some of the memories and moments that stuck. And we played in a lot of really cool tournaments and things too. And one in particular, like we went to Puerto Rico. That was awesome. And it was like a men's and women's tournament going on at the same time. And it just was tons of fun. And we won that tournament and really, really good memories there. And then even Florida, I remember playing in something, I think it was like a Thanksgiving tournament. Tennessee was also playing in that same tournament. We didn't end up going against each other, but I just remember like Mika and I did get to spend some sister time and things. But for me, I mean, I think the biggest blessing of playing is just the friendships and the relationships. I still, to this day, have several teammates, especially from college, that I still check in with on a regular basis. And I think that those are the things that matter beyond the on court stuff.
For listeners who haven't been, kind of tell people a little bit about what Champaign is like as a city while you're going to college.
Champaign was actually so fun. I think it was a probably typical college town, a lot going on, but you just kind of find your little pocket, you find your things. And for us, obviously, being a student athlete, you're super busy, so you don't have all the same time. But I think even just kind of the brotherhood, sisterhood of all the athletes was kind of cool. And just to be part of a program in a school and an environment and a culture was just really, really exciting. We had a really positive experience at Illinois.
When you look right now at the growth of women's basketball, particularly in the college game, does that put a smile on your face?
It absolutely does. But college sports is, I don't want to call it a hot mess, but some of the stuff that's going on with the transfer portal and NIL, as much as there are things about it that I don't particularly care for, I do think that the biggest winners with NIL are female athletes being able to capitalize on their name, image, and likeness and start thinking about building their brands, marketing themselves. I think that's been huge. And that's been something that's definitely contributed to the success of the game. And now that's even trickling into the W.
As a parent, how hard is it to navigate a lot of that NIL stuff? I know your son transferred as well, to make sure it doesn't get confusing and overwhelming, not just for your son, but also for you as a parent.
It's hard. It's definitely a lot more to navigate and think about. I think some of the perception of it is off going into everything. As a parent and a former college athlete, I kind of looked at some of the stuff like, no, that's just wrong. You go somewhere and you're supposed to be there for 4 years. So his experience has really opened my eyes. And then as things have kind of shifted and changed, I do like that some of the players do have a little bit more control over their futures and over their decisions, because once you get out of school and become an adult, it's different. But just trying to make sure that they're learning. I do hate that these kids are having to become adults a little bit faster. Like for us, we still kind of laugh at the fact that what college represented to us was you were broke, but you learned how to survive. There's a lot to be learned when you don't have, and you have to navigate and figure out ways. Okay, I've got $50 to last me the rest of this month, and just getting creative. And I don't even think we realized that we were broke because we were happy, and ignorance is bliss. And we were kind of ignorant and blissful, where some of these kids, I think I worry more about their mental health later. And I do worry about placing value on kids that is a monetary value at such a young age when it shouldn't be about that. You're still figuring out who you are. So I don't love some of that, but I'm old school when it comes to certain things. And it's been an adjustment, but I also do love that, like, some of these kids, if they do things the right way, you now have your degree and you can go off and start this life and you have a jump start. So looking at it that way of setting themselves up for future success later. Like, I can't even imagine having left school with anything in the bank.
So, being old school, how hard was it for you to initially change your mindset of you should be here for 4 years and you shouldn't be getting paid in terms of the way they're being paid now?
Trust me, it's been a process. But I also think that the way that we were coached and the way that things were set up before has shifted. And I don't think that enough people on the other side understand that back in the day, you did sign up for, I'm going to be here for 4 years. You're going to be my coach. Unless there's a coaching change, I'm going to be here with you for these 4 years. Now, the way that a lot of these coaches and programs are running things is pretty much year to year. And I think a lot of people want to place blame on the athletes. And I think that what they're not seeing and understanding is that at the end of the year, we used to have an exit meeting with the coach. And it was more so, what went well? What do I need to work on? Any thoughts, feedback? And then you moved into the next season. Now, those exit meetings look different in some cases, and it's sad. So I think a lot of people are thinking, oh, it's just the kids are jumping around. And if you go into an exit meeting and your coach basically tells you, look, we're not going to pay you next year, or we're bringing in somebody else at your position that's probably going to push you out. Some of it is dictated by the coaches wanting to make changes too. And I've heard of, not necessarily in our case, but I've heard of situations where coaches have even said it'd be a good idea for you to get into the transfer portal. So it's not always the kid wanting change. Some of that change is not necessarily their choice.
If you take a look at a school like Utah State on the men's side, I think they're on their fifth coach in 6 years. And that's hard when you're a kid to commit for 4 years if now you're playing for three different coaches.
Absolutely. It's an interesting landscape right now. My heart goes out to the coaches. My heart goes out to the players. And then on top of that, one we're not talking about is social media and the negativity that these student athletes and coaches and everybody have to deal with. On top of that, I think back our days, and it was such a positive experience being an athlete. You had your sports reporters, they would write an article about the game that was very factual. It wasn't a bunch of opinions. And then on top of that, they wrote the article. You could read the article and then you kept it moving. Now you've got all these people with all these opinions, most of them that never played, don't have any true understanding, experience, qualifications, etc. But they put a lot of it out there. And then even for the articles that are written by sports reporters, now you can comment on them. And a lot of the toxicity that comes from that. And I mean, I'm super old school to the point where I was raised that if you had nothing nice to say, you don't say anything at all. That's something that is really gone by the wayside, and it's unfortunate.
Through the foundation and with your kids, how do you help them navigate social media so it doesn't affect their mental health negatively?
Prayer. I started kind of even experiencing some of this as my sister's career was coming to an end. And that was kind of when social media was starting to take off a little bit more, and just seeing like how mean people could be. At that point, I wasn't even thinking long-term my kids and them having to dealing with people and opinions and just negativity. And there are sports and there are things that I don't particularly care for or follow. But the last thing that I would spend my time doing is tearing apart people that do like those things and tearing apart athletes that have worked hard to do those things. And I choose not to participate when it comes to social media. Like even right now, I recently wrote a book and everyone keeps telling me, well, best way to get that book out there is social media. And I'm really struggling with it because I just don't want to participate. I'm all about protecting my peace, and part of protecting my peace is not participating in that.
So I hear you on that because when I started this podcast, I wasn't really sure I wanted to get involved in the whole social media thing, but I decided to because of the fact that I figured it could help grow it. But all that being said, you mentioned your book, Faith on the Sidelines. What's the book about in terms of the message you're trying to get across?
The book actually is kind of a culmination of many, many years and struggles and ups and downs and highs and lows of navigating being a parent of young, aspiring athletes. And I've always journaled. I journaled even back in college. So journaling's always kind of been a part of what I've done. And as I have kind of navigated and gone through my kids' journeys of playing sports and such, I was looking for something that I'm like, I wish that there was like some sort of a resource or some sort of a devotional specifically for sports parents to kind of encourage them through the highs and the lows. And I think that's what's frustrating sometimes as a parent is knowing nobody has success overnight. It is many, many hours, many, many years, a lot of blood, sweat, tears, the works, a lot of being on your knees praying, and a lot of, is this ever going to come together? And I always have a lot of people asking me questions kind of about, well, how did you deal with this? Or how did you deal with that? Or I'm dealing with this situation with my kid. Did you go through this? And the playing time and the politics and the injuries. I'm like, I've been through all of it. So the book is basically Our Faith on the Sidelines, the 100 Days of Purpose, Prayers, and Perseverance for Sports Parents. And devotionals and journaling and prayer are the only thing that have gotten me through not only just life, but especially these toxic times, the highs and lows and the trials of navigating athletics for your child. And I think that you'd asked me the question earlier about would I rather take the shot or watch my son take the shot? This is just supporting parents because you don't have a lot of control over your kids' futures other than relinquishing control to God and being able to just pray on it and trust his plans, trust his timing, pray more, worry less. So that's the premise of the book. And my boys and I, from the time they were a little bit younger, our nighttime routine was we're going to do a devotional, we'll read a scripture, and then everybody's going to give a praise and a prayer request, and we pray, and then they go to bed. And that was kind of our rhythm. So a little bit of that rhythm is introduced in the book, and just kind of sharing stories of encouragement and sharing some of what we've gone through without getting overly into detail about everything. But I think that the premise of the book is just bringing people closer to God, because that has been the only thing that's been constant in my life that's helped me to stay steady during rocky times. And it's an emotional roller coaster.
How did you get into journaling initially when you were younger?
Honestly, I knew that I was going to probably author a book at some point, and I wasn't the best student, especially when it came to the maths and certain things, but I just felt really good about creative writing. It was always my favorite class. My sister was big into poetry, but for me, it was stories and writing. So journaling, it's therapeutic too. So even right now, like I blog, and the blog, I probably do need to figure out a way to get it out there a little bit more, but it's sharing. And it's good to get things off your chest. So for me, journaling, like even through the foundation, a lot of our mentoring programs and things that we've done, we've always included journaling.
From your creative writing, what's a favorite story that you wrote?
Oh, goodness. That's a good question. There's one that I have, and I haven't read it in a while, but just pretty much all my stories are about family. So I can remember from the time I was younger, just writing about things like that, searching for a rainbow and finding the rainbow. And then there's treasure and just really positive. I'd say that that's probably the common theme.
So looking back on your basketball career, since we just talked about treasure, what's the treasure that basketball you feel has really given you?
I think the treasure is friendships and experiences, relationships, and even being a common thread that ties my boys and I together. And it's funny because there are times when they're like, Mom, you played back in the 1900s, or they'll say things that I'm like, hey, look. I have to remind them that, like, I was once in your shoes. I've done what you're doing and had some pretty decent success at it, which, of course, growing up, that was one of the things I hated most that my dad would say to us. It's not like I don't know what I'm talking about. I played 11 years in the NBA, and we used to hate. And every time I remember rolling our eyes and we'd kind of look at each other, here we go with the I played in the NBA stuff. And now I find myself with the boys, not necessarily played in the NBA, but I know what I'm talking about. So it's funny. But basketball's definitely been a gift that's kind of taken us all over the world, gotten to travel to a lot of cool places, and just gotten to experience a lot of really neat things through the game of basketball.
You played overseas for a couple years, didn't you?
I did. So I played over in France, and then my sister got injured. And so I flew back and didn't go back. And then I was over in Sweden. So those were the two countries that I played in. I could have kept playing, but I decided at that point to shift gears. And for me, I can honestly say I never loved basketball. My sister, basketball was like her first love, her true love, her main love. And I remember even we'd moved to Deerfield, Illinois, my 8th grade year. And I decided I don't want to play basketball. I'm just going to maybe do volleyball, and I don't want to play basketball. So my sister, she was a 7th grader, but she was so good that they put her on the 8th grade team. And there was one day, probably midway through the season, that I was waiting for her to finish practice. So I just started shooting around on the side. And the coach was like, wait a minute, why aren't you playing? And I was like, playing volleyball. I don't want to play basketball. And the coach was like, well, we only have a few more games left in the season, and then we have this big tournament, and then the season's over. So would you consider playing the rest of the season? And my sister was like, you've got to play. You've got to play. It'd be so much fun. So I ended up joining the team midway through the season. And then our high school coach actually saw me playing in that tournament and ended up playing varsity all 4 years. And at that point, it was a shift of, I can actually do this thing. But I remember for me, it was more the pride that my sister had for me playing, and how proud and how excited she was that I was going to play. And then knowing that, okay, she'll be playing with me for these next few years. So that was more my why.
I know a little bit about basketball in France from John Cox, Kobe's cousin, who played there for a couple of years, but I haven't heard a whole lot about basketball in Sweden. What was it like to play there?
Honestly, Sweden was amazing. One of the most beautiful places, the nicest, friendliest people. It was a super positive experience. And for me, I just mentioned that I wasn't the most, ooh, basketball, yay. I like to play, but I want to shop, I want to eat, I want to do all these things and sightsee and have fun, hang out. So France was a little bit over the top in terms of competitive and things like that. Whereas Sweden, a lot of the players had full-time jobs, and then they played basketball too. So it was a little bit of a different mindset, and it was fun. So Sweden was awesome. And we ended up actually winning the championship.
So where's your ring these days?
You know what? I don't even think they gave us rings. They gave us like a piece of gold. And I don't even know where that piece of gold is. It's probably somewhere, maybe in a jewelry box or something. It was a fun group of players. Even our coaches all had real jobs, and then they coached basketball. So it was more my speed. I think being somebody that wasn't like, okay, I don't need to play in the top league and practice 3 times a day. Like, I think they practiced once a day, and there were days that they didn't practice. And it was a perfect way to end my playing career.
Tauja, I want to thank you so much for joining the I Play 2 podcast today. It was great to hear about traveling to Sweden, the Catch the Stars Foundation, hearing you being a sports parent. Thank you so much. Take care and have a great trip.
I appreciate you giving me the platform to talk, and hopefully I didn't over talk. And thank you so much. It's been fun.